Omre Mikhail Aïvanhov. Part 1. Interviews, Quebec. June 8, 2019. Well, dear friends, I'm extremely happy to express myself in this beautiful country, which I visited when I was in this body, and I came to see you at the end of my life. And I look forward to the possibility, the opportunity, to express myself among you. So, as usual, if you prefer, we will start this meeting, this interview, to listen to your questions. So, dear friend, if you would like to start with the first question. Voice. Yes. How do we get rid of our stubborn obsessions? Well, dear friend, I believe that you are obliged, as Ego would say, to absorb your own defects, and not to oppose them, not to try to solve them in any way, but to accept that these obsessions that bother you, obviously concern a person, and it is therefore an invitation to change your position or point of view of your conscience, to absorb yourself. And there are many things that have been revealed and during your stasis, for a year there, that have just passed, and that have given you all the possible elements. But remember, today, if you try to solve something on your own, to understand it, to overcome it, keeping the person's point of view, you will not succeed. So do the same for obsessions, eat them, absorb them, cross them, but don't oppose them, and especially don't look for techniques or ways to put an end to these obsessions. All you have to do is accept to go through it, to accept that you are nothing of this character, and nothing of these defects, and you will then see that all this is livable, and that all this, of course, is eliminated from yourself, because you are nothing of the character, and obviously, even less your obsessions, which concern only the person, only the soul, but not what you really are. And given the openness, the transformation that has taken place on this earth, and in the whole of creation since I would say a year, you have the possibility, through the absorption of essences, through agape, through networks, through the word, through even vibrations, to leave all this aside, because as long as you believe that you will get rid, in this period, of your fixed ideas, your obsessions, you're ultimately only reinforcing identification with the person, the character, with history. You've never moved. You've always been immobile, you've always been perfect. So accept this, accept it, absorb your own obsessions, I would say, if you prefer, love them, and it is the love you show towards this character, through what you call obsessions, that will allow you to cross it, and especially, to be dissolved within your own ephemeral, and on the other side, to cross it, and well, you will be in joy, no matter how persistent or not these obsessions are. Because you will notice at that moment that there is, at the same time, I would say, the character who opens this obsession, but at the same time, the I, however said, the absolute I who will be there, and who will put an end to the simograms of the character who believes he is suffering from such a disease, such a disorder. It is exactly the same for everything you encounter, whatever explained to you, and also by a short time ago, and what you had, a short time ago, concerning the I am you is really the ultimate key, the one that concretely allows you to cross everything and live everything in lightness and joy. Whatever the disease, whatever the condition, whatever the pain, you are none of these things. So of course, and my speech here may seem new to you compared to what I was actually saying about a notion of evolutionary progressions that only concern a person. Now, as more and more of you discover that all creation is a dream, just like us, of course, and the obvious thing is to accept that all this does not concern you, but concerns the person, the one who believes he is this body, this life, this history, these problems. If you accept this point of view, of course, the point of view of your consciousness will naturally change and will bring you, if I may say so, to the frontier of consciousness. And everything is done by itself today, without you. As long as you believe by yourself, in relation to the spirit, in relation to the truth, you cannot achieve it. To do this, whatever words have been used by others, you must disappear from yourself, not as something you must deny, but as something you must integrate, absorb, surpass and love. If you do, then, at that time, you will discover what naked joy is and experience it, no matter what the previous state was a few minutes ago, or a few days before. The solution today is radical, it is definitive, it puts an end to the illusion of being a person, of being affected by such a problem or suffering, but above all, it makes you discover the truth that has always been there. Listen to your incarnate brothers and sisters, and through their testimonies, all that they've lived, all that they are living. They are no more advanced than you, they are no higher somewhere than you, they just understood it and lived a little bit before the others, nothing more and nothing less. Everything you are going to oppose today, of whatever nature, can only be strengthened almost immediately. That is to say, where you put your attention, your conscience, your interest if you want, you will find that not only does it get stronger, and that it disturbs you more and more, because the intelligence of the light that is present, that you are, takes care of everything. Then address the intelligence of light that you are from your character, simply by recognizing yourself as the intelligence of light, even if you do not live it. There is no question of asking the light or asking the intelligence of the light to rid you, in this particular case, of obsessions, because at that moment, it is still the person who wants to be rid of something, but I remind you that, above all, it is your idea of being a person who must faint and disappear. And there, of course, you will experience naked joy, this unspeakable love that was named by Abba, and the one who channels me, is agape. They're not words like that in the air, they're not to look pretty, they're not scenery, they're the strict truth. But the simple fact of asking this question, I do not refute it, moreover I'll answer it with pleasure, simply shows that the person who asks this question is obviously in his character and believes to be true, and quite logically asks himself the question of being rid of a disorder, whatever it is, or a disease, or a problem. But it doesn't work like that anymore. Here too, we must break these kinds of action-reaction habits. You have to be totally available, to live this joy that does not depend on you, but that you are nevertheless. It is simply enough to acquiesce, not to say yes to suffering, but to accept that all this is only passing, and it will be exceeded in an increasingly obvious way for everyone, whatever the problem. Joy, in a way, this naked love agape, will come to cover you brutally or gradually as if you put on a garment of light, and that you were no longer really and concretely identified with the problem, because it is the person who has the problem, not what you are. We can continue, without that I'm going to answer too long on the questions too. Voice. The second question is similar to the first, but it is, how can we accept a defect, a vice, an obsession that keeps coming back? So it's the same thing about and a little bit broader than what you could name the entities, the possessions, all the things that, if you are sensitive and you feel, and that seem to bother you somewhere. Accept that you are the totality of creation and that you are prior to this totality. Absorb and, how you said, vices, not obsessions, there was another word, and everything is done by itself today, without you. As long as you believe by yourself, in relation to the spirit, in relation to the truth, you cannot achieve it. To do this, whatever words have been used by others, you must disappear from yourself, not as something you must deny, but as something you must integrate, absorb, surpass and love. If you do, then, at that time, you will discover what naked joy is and experience it, no matter what the previous state was a few minutes ago, or a few days before. The solution today is radical, it is definitive, it puts an end to the illusion of being a person, of being affected by such a problem or suffering, but above all, it makes you discover the truth that has always been there. Listen to your incarnate brothers and sisters, and through their testimonies, all that they've lived, all that they are living. They are no more advanced than you, they are no higher somewhere than you, they just understood it and lived a little bit before the others, nothing more and nothing less. Everything you are going to oppose today, of whatever nature, can only be strengthened almost immediately. That is to say, where you put your attention, your conscience, your interest if you want, you will find that not only does it get stronger, and that it disturbs you more and more, because the intelligence of the light that is present, that you are, takes care of everything. then address the intelligence of light that you are from your character, simply by recognizing yourself as the intelligence of light, even if you do not live it. There is no question of asking the light or asking the intelligence of the light to rid you, in this particular case, of obsessions, because at that moment, it is still the person who wants to be rid of something, but I remind you that, above all, it is your idea of being a person who must faint and disappear. And there, of course, you will experience naked joy, this unspeakable love that was named by Eber, and the one who channels me, is agape. They're not words like that in the air, they're not to look pretty, they're not scenery, they're the strict truth. But the simple fact of asking this question, I do not refute it, moreover I'll answer it with pleasure, simply shows that the person who asks this question is obviously in his character and believes to be true, and quite logically asks himself the question of being rid of a disorder, whatever it is, or a disease, or a problem. But it doesn't work like that anymore. Here too, we must break these kinds of action-reaction habits. You have to be totally available to live this joy that does not depend on you, but that you are nevertheless. It is simply enough to acquiesce, not to say yes to suffering, but to accept that all this is only passing, and it will be exceeded in an increasingly obvious way for everyone, whatever the problem. Joy, in a way, this naked love agape, will come to cover you brutally or gradually as if you put on a garment of light, and that you were no longer really and concretely identified with the problem, because it is the person who has the problem, not what you are. We can continue, without that I'm going to answer too long on the questions too. Voice. The second question is similar to the first, but it is, how can we accept a defect, a vice, an obsession that keeps coming back? So it's the same thing about and a little bit broader than what you could name the entities, the possessions, all the things that, if you are sensitive and you feel, and that seem to bother you somewhere. Accept that you are the totality of creation and that you're prior to this totality. Absorb and, how you said, vices, not obsessions, there was another word. Voice. Defects, vices, obsessions that keep coming back. So it's the same question as the first one, except for something else. It's simply to accept the idea, even if you don't live it, without opposing it, without denying it. By accepting it you'll find, if you do it sincerely, that at that moment, well, all that no longer exists, and you can only laugh about it. But also remember that during this period, even if you have been affected for years by this kind of problem, today, more than ever, it is the opportunity, the very pretext that allows you to discover that you are none of these things. You must experience it, and for you those experiences were necessary. So there is no point in saying that it is an entity, there is no point in saying that it is possessions, there is no point in saying that your psyche is disturbed and looking for a solution in there. It means accepting, here too, that you are all this and that all this is only there to allow you to be in the best conditions to live the truth. Everything is only a pretext in this period, whatever your age, whatever your problems of whatever nature, to enable you to overcome the problem, and thus to overcome the person, not by denying or rejecting him, but by embracing at the same time, as I said, the intelligence of the light that you are. But it must not come from the person can only agree, erase, disappear to himself, and the obsession, the entities, the diseases, the old age, the problems of whatever nature they are today, which affect you, are only there to wake you up, to make you lead the dream. There is no punishment, there is nothing that is without reason, even and especially if you do not understand the reason. That is precisely where the truth lies. You don't have to try to solve things like that. If you're really capable, I would say, of passing through yourselves, then the intelligence of light, which has always been there, even if today it is collective at the level of creation, will reveal itself to you through joy, through agape, through naked love. You can't fool yourself about that. You can't go wrong. While everything else today is nothing but a false path. It is not easy to accept, precisely for those who still believe themselves to be a person or a story, or a consequence of anything. You are both the origin and the end of everything, not only of your life, but also of everything else. This has been explained in length, breadth and depth. But again, as the channel said, he said, if you have a health problem that persists, there is no contraindication, quite the contrary, to deal with it materially, energetically. But don't question anything other than the body itself. Do not look, as it is said in French, for noon to 2 o'clock. Accept all that is present is already to show great wisdom, to be calm, to bring yourself to the level of consciousness in an embracing posture, to bring you to understanding through living and crossing, to realize that consciousness is of no use to you and that, each of us, is well before consciousness, and that the deployment of the dream of creation has reached its end, and that there will never be a dream again. Anyway, when I say that there will never be a dream again, remember, time and space do not exist, they are a creation of consciousness and regardless of what has been called dimensions. Accept it, it is not a belief what I am talking about, because acceptance really creates the return of the present moment, the return of truth at the individual level, but as you also know, in an increasingly collective way. So we can continue, because I don't have to go into all the questions. Voice. We no longer have a written question. So we will hear voices from Quebec, perhaps. Laughs. I reassure you, there is no question that is not useful. Everything is useful. And everyone already asleep. Laughs. Brother. Hello. My name is, my question relates to your opinion on fasting. So, fasting, today it is known I believe by medicine, allows us to act on the immune system, and moreover for those who followed all our teachings at the time, there was an important time during the celestial wedding, when you were by the Archangel Enel to eat light, to read liquid, to promote in a physiological way the diversion of blood occupied with digestion to the heart and the brain. It was a physiological mechanism. Today, those who are free, who are in this agape joy, do not need fasting, meditation or anything else. But of course, if it seems too heavy to you, if it seems to you to be in discomfort somewhere, of course, fasting will help you, not to be free, but to be a little better within this character, and therefore to be a little more available for what you really are, the intelligence of light. So fasting is not at all as useful as it was 10 years ago, but it is still useful, even for the person, for example, on the immune system, on vitality, on perception too. But you know that you are neither vitality nor perception, you are none of those things. But indeed, it is better, if you have the opportunity, to be in the best possible conditions, and to live what is to be lived, and you know, as I said, you're in exactly the right place, whatever you think, to live the intelligence of the truth that you are. That's all is, as Ekpa says, everything has been written, you're just reminding yourself that it's all been written. You don't need to have an image, you just need to wake up, like in the morning when you come out of your night's dreams. It's the same thing, nothing more, and I think Ekpa said it, it's terribly simple, but it's so simple that the mind, the character, the very energy, the feelings, are in total opposition to it, because we've all operated on this earth under the influence of the law of karma, action-reaction, and we had no possibility at the time. Even if indeed, at some point in my life, after my trip to India, I knew very well, and I had said so, that there was something after the sun. You know that I worship the sun, and that for me it was the soul of Christ, but behind Christ, there is the Father. But the Father is not a bearded man, the Father is each of you. You are both the Father and the Son, and the Mother. You're all the others, without exception. It is no longer time to play, as I have done in many lives, with magic, with the control of the elements, with the creation of groups or communities of any kind. You are free on your own, and you are the totality of the created, as well as the totality of the uncreated. This is what puts you in your natural state, in naked joy, without object, without reason, where you instantly recognize yourself. Now you're awake, you're out of sleep, out of the dream and out of the nightmare. This mechanism, if I may say so, because it is one, is terribly simple. But it is very difficult to accept by the character who will actually find all the possible alibis not to live it, or to prevent you from living it. but it is not you, it is the character's reflexes, it is your brain, it is your physical configuration, it is habits taken within this world, as with any manifested world, that have deprived or enclosed understanding through experience, that you are both a consciousness, both all consciences, both all dreams, all dimensions, but that in truth you are none of these, and that you are only the Absolute, as Baidu would say. We can continue with the oral questions, then. Voice. Yes, someone who raises his hand. They put something in my throat that prevents me from caressing my beard, it's very embarrassing. But that's all right. Laughs. And cousins are almost as asleep as the French. Laughs. Brother. Hello. Hello. I'm going to tell a story I had 2 years ago. What's he talking about? Laughs. Voice. He speaks in Quebec. Ah, it's Quebec, but then a special Quebecer. Laughs. The experience I had 2 years ago. You're yelling too loudly into the microphone, there's something that's killing my ears right now. Try to speak a little quieter, with more gentleness, please. At the beginning of the day. Well, that's better. Is that better? It is as if, behind my conscience, I felt inities or inanities, as if there was something absolute that accompanied me. That's what you are. It was very, very intense, and it was like a resentment, or feeling, that is, like an experience. It's the discovery, certainly for that. Yes, and then it lasted all day, and then everything went out, and for the last 2 years, it's radio silence. I haven't experienced it again. Are these things coming back, or is it just an experience? No, it's going to stay, it's going to grow. As soon as you discover how, in your own words, you are something infinite, it's over with the character, it's over with the story, at least in the belief in him, you're awake. Don't worry about how to reproduce it, it happened, but don't try to bring it back to life, because you would be moving away from it. Remain calm, listen, be very present, and all this will be done naturally. That's what waking up is all about. You perfectly express this notion of awakening. You see, it doesn't depend on any one energy, not on any particular energy. You didn't feel a particular vibration either. You didn't feel anything moving. It just appeared. No, it was motionless. And when it appears, it means, as the channel told you, and as Zebra and Baidu also told you, you are zero time. And in this room, I see it, there are several that are at zero time. And of course, the zero time information that is carried by a brother or sister who has overcome this notion of form, by living it, is available to everyone here in this room, and even to those who will listen, or who sometimes listen live. That is what is magical, that is the only magic, that is the magic of love, that is the magic of zero time. It is not a ritual, it is not a magical practice, it is indeed the moment when your consciousness, as you say so well, was busy, that you realize that there is something much more vast, infinite that is there. This is the death warrant for the disease of conscience. You don't need to worry about it, it was experienced, the same way those who spoke at night, lying down, their names and first names, and lived it. You cannot doubt what is happening at that moment, and even if nothing happens, don't be alarmed. I think Abba has said it many times, you are who you are, and you are anterior to all beings. And it can sometimes be discovered in this way. You're listening to someone who's talking, and suddenly you realize, as you said, that there's something behind it. But in fact it is not, neither behind nor in front of it, it is there, in the heart of the heart, which only wants to appear within the character, within the body of eternity if you perceive it, but it is there for everyone, even if you do not perceive it, and it is done without you. Remember the sentence that Baidu or Eva or the channel used, that is, it is not the person who is liberated, it is you who are liberated from the person, it is not really the same thing. the person, the character. He will be there until the moment of your last breath, whatever it is, whatever your way of leaving this plane, whether it is by the collective event, by an accident, by anything. So there is no point in opposing this materiality, but in letting the spirit somehow absorb matter, because what has been called ascension takes place in this body, and through this body, and not in another dimension, and not in the astral, and not in visions, and not even in vibrations. The vibrations have allowed you to resynthesize the body of light, the body of eternity, which is present in everyone, you know, and this was mentioned I think during the last meeting, the wings that grow in the back. Indeed, for those who followed what was called the AYOUN dimensions, you have at the back of your head the triangle of the Hate Kadesh, of the earth element, which had already joined many months ago, through the channel of the ether, what you called before the Sushumna, the Kekra of the heart through the Kidaristi gate. But today, what is happening at the back, and I remind you that the back is not only the triangle of earth with the stars that make it up, it is also the location of the brain stem, the cerebellum, that is, all the memories, all the automatic processes related to life. And there, it doesn't unfold in the same way, it's the wings that reactivate, that is, the triangle of earth at the back of the head will unfold towards the shoulders, and many of you have felt, not pain, but a feeling of gravity on the shoulders, even of warmth, behind the back. It is quite logical. The body of eternity continues unbeknownst to you voluntarily or by your decision or perception, to develop as it had been predicted, written, even before creation. What was the question again? Where did I get lost? Laughs. No, that was the testimony, I didn't get lost. So we can continue, but your testimony is precious, it's the moment you wake up. Then of course there is the fire of the Sacred Heart, there are the agave resonances, there is the total joy, the eternal I, the absolute that unfolds within the known. But from the moment you have contacted the virus of zero time, it is over, you have been contaminated and, as I said, there are many here who are at zero time, and, of course, they are there, and all the others, even those who are living nothing, are inscribing zero time in them, without their knowledge of their own free will or any will. Because it was hidden both in the heart of the heart, but also as it was revealed a short time ago, through your name and your first name that you bear here in this very world, in this life, and that everything of course contributes to opening this timeless space which is the resolution of the myth of creation, of the dream of consciousness which is a disease, but which no one could live or even less accept, until 10 or 20 years ago. I think you heard it from the head chief, Jean Luc, and Biddy is the only one who has escaped history, from the conditioning of consciousness. He has come, in a way, prepared what you are living now, as Christ prepared the vibratory evolution and the archetypes, in order to overcome them. That is exactly what is happening and it is collective. In fact, I think you heard it from the head chief, the moment you enter this room, it's over, you're done. Laughs. You no longer have any hope to feed on anything, rest assured, let what you are, even if it is unknown to you work, you are not needed, as stories or people, suffering, obsessions, entities, vibrations or others. It is extremely contaminating, and I mean by that, that even if you are not aware of it yet in the moment, zero time has awakened in each of you, whether you like it or not. It's still well done, though, isn't it? Laughs. Yes. And the script could only be written to be sure, as Egma and Head Chief said, that no one would be left behind. But it is not a desire to leave anyone alone, it is because it is something that is, as has been said, inevitable, inexorable, and that has been thought of, written beyond any form, and much earlier if we can speak of anteriority, of the dream of creation. If you accept this not as a belief, but if you ask yourself this question, freedom is already there. But remember, if you value your habits, if you value any teaching, you limit yourself, you can no longer rely on what has served you so much. And even everything I could say, whether when I was incarnate, or when I broadcast by Head Chief, but previously by Debbie, whom you don't know here, who was my first official channel in France, but who left little trace, because the time had not come, It's the same thing. Today we're all contaminated by zero time, by the present instant, and especially by the truth. And naked joy, the eternal I, the absolute, the Parabrahman, you call it as you wish, can only reveal itself, brutally, consummation, gradually also, little smile, moment of joy without reason, without object, but you recognize yourself through it. And contamination, as you can well imagine, because it is really contamination, can only spread more and more rapidly, obviously through the means of recording and distribution. You do not need, of course, but even if I am delighted today, to find this country through the head chief, you do not need anything, the information is there, from zero time, from the instant moment. It is up to you, really and concretely, and I am not addressing the characters or the story here, to live it in its entirety. You, that is, the eternal I, who hears through the character my words, but who are not intended for your character, but for what is happening elsewhere, in the heart, in the back, in front, whatever, it is everywhere. That's how you experience the truth, and that's how you wake up permanently. If you look at everything that has been said, because there are many of you here too, who have followed Outre's dimensions, you'll see, if we take, for example, the Archangel Uriel, who intervened at particular moments when it was a question of turning, of crossing the throat, with his poems, his lyrical flights, corresponds exactly to what you are experiencing now. At the time, you perceived the vibration, the light, it seemed authentic to you or not, but today you live it directly, and everything that has been retransmitted, given, through all these years of channeling, has only been finally to bring you closer to the truth that even we Melchizedecs, we did not have access. The stashes that we have lived since January 29, 2018 until recently, has allowed us to go through all the illusions and creations that we too had accomplished in our last incarnate life, which was for us the result of all our lives within the being, for me as for all the others, without any distinction. But here it is, the truth has been told, the truth has been seen, the confinement has been broken, the dream is over, and it is a real deliverance, even if today you don't have any, I would say, the experience, the perception, or even if you still refuse it, it doesn't make any difference. Because you have an appointment that is now, with consciousness, with the whole of creation, from the highest vibratory plane, Metatron or the Hathar Kadesh, or the geneticist mothers, to the heaviest of the invisible, the Ekans, Yaldabaoth and his henchmen, even the puppets of the earth. But that I always said, those who were with the orders of the Ekans, have only played their part. Do not judge, even if you have suffered from it, the time has come to understand and live that it is only you, at other times in space and time, always within the dream. If you accept it, you have already opened wide the doors of your heart to the experience of zero time, it is a certainty, it cannot fail, as said Head Chief, you cannot be wrong and you cannot be wrong. That doesn't stop you from loving or hating your life, but you are alive, and you will soon find out, if you haven't already, that you are good or bad, at whatever level, doesn't change anything about the case. It is the end of the dream or myth of creation, it is the end of suffering, the end of the manifestation of consciousness, and the end of all that passes. There remains only what has always existed, the eternal I, the absolute I. Creation will pass, said Baidu when he was incarnated, that you will still be there, but not as a person, as pure love, as ever, not through a form, not through a world or a dimension, but as a truth that nothing can equal, that no dream and no manifestation of consciousness can alter. That's what's new. Come on, let's keep going. Brother, can you tell us about the heart of the heart, about how it is lived in everyday life, as an experience? What is the word? The karma? Repeating. I didn't understand the word. Voice. The heart of the heart. The heart of the heart, but it's been mentioned in dozens of channelings. The heart of the heart uses very physically, through the center of the body chakra, not the ninth body, nor the eighth, but the central point of the small heart chakra, not even the ascension crowns. I think Ebba told you at length about the resonance of the heart, the resonance of the agape network, this 3-beat pulse at the level of the heart, but also that terrace, that is to say the double terrace, the unified electromagnetic field that has spread from this central point, and that turns in a direction to the left, and in the other direction, coming from Kiristia at the back to reach the heart of the heart, while the other goes back, the other goes forward, and that it is this alchemy that makes time zero, for you, for the solar system, for all dimensions and for all creation. The heart of the heart is nothing other than the 0 point, it is the point of junctions between the character, the being and the non-being. It is the place where the alchemy of what was called at the time, the new Eucharist, the new triunity, is realized, knowing that we no longer even need unity, since there has never been anyone. The heart of the heart is nothing more than to return, whatever the previous experience of the chakras, the opening of the gates and stars, the wave of life, the Marian channel and all these structures, and even the clear and conscious perception of the wings, the appendages of the body of eternity. For example, if you're of stellar origin from Elta, you will feel a beak, really and concretely. But don't worry about that today. Of course, for years we have focused you on these gates and stars, to integrate the process, to live it, but we have never said that this is the goal. It was simply a kind of interface of feelings and experiences that would bring you as close as possible to the truth, that is, the heart of the heart. The heart of the heart is a real point, it is the precise center of the heart chakra, it is also an acupuncture point, do not count on me to give you the number. It is also what connects the heart chakra, the 9th body on the angle, at the top of the sternal manubrium, and Kiristia in the back, which was explained many years ago by Sri Aurobindo. These are all landmarks. But today you no longer have to be interested in that strictly speaking, in the sense, for example, of knowing what it means and what it corresponds to, but simply there to accept it and it will be gone through. There will be no more interference, no more feelings even if it is still there, and you will discover that you are not consciousness. Then it can be done once again by setting the whole body on fire, setting only the fire of the heart, setting the periphery of the hands and feet on fire, each in its own way if I can say so, but the result is always the same. The actualization by manifestation here in the dream of truth, and it is this truth that puts an end to the fact of believing you to be an individual, perfect or imperfect, dependent on the circumstances of society, your body, your physiology, your relationships, any karma. The heart of the heart is where the truth has always been written. Besides, the wise men, at the time, you know, there was a legend that said, the gods gathered among themselves and asked themselves the question of, where were they going to hide man's divinity? Well, it's a novel, it's not true, but it corresponds well to that. And they say, the gods said, let us put it in the heart, it is the only place where they will never think to seek, or in any case to find themselves, because consciousness acts only by comparison, only, by definition, by the very form that can be mutilated within the other dimensions, within a given framework of expression of consciousness, which has been called 5D, 9D, 11D, 18D, 24D, but all this is resolved here at the heart of the heart, at 0 time, which is this infinite joy of agape. It really imprints itself through the body. Years ago I said, in the 2017s, to hit your chest to feel your heart, it wasn't that stupid. You have also experienced the learning, for some of you, of what had been called the heart response, in choices to be made, even for the choice of a food. But today you no longer even need that, but everything you have experienced, personally, individually, in all areas of your life, such as energetic, spiritual or conscious approaches, was written, was meant to bring you to the central point of the heart, of 0 time if you prefer. This is where what I called with a head chief must also be located, acceptance, embracing, crossing, refusing nothing. That's how you live today, not the installation of the 4 pillars, but the truth of the 4 pillars. That's how you realize, as you live it, that you are not that character, much less what it is affected by, but that you are nothing of the created, that you are anterior to the created. This is naked joy that does not correspond to any framework, to any history, and which, above all, does not depend on any condition. The heart of the heart was also, through my Anandamoy, the abode of supreme peace, Shanti Nilaya. It is Saturday Shitananda for those who love Eastern terms, but it is also I and my Father are one of Christ. I am the way, the truth and the life. I am the Alpha and the Omega, but there is no more Alpha than there is Omega. But it was necessary to live a particular story to get out of history. And it has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years for those who had followed history. It was important not to lose the thread, but as everything was written, and even if we felt that we had chosen to be a spiritual guide of my time, and to create movements, there were no other possibilities. We could not escape duality, whatever our experiences at the time, whatever the truth of our actions, as I did, for example, to put out fires, using the genius of fire, Vahuya. But today, all this is no longer necessary. Look at the brothers and sisters who are witnessing from everywhere, from their lived experience. Whether it is the most intense with the bonfire of the heart or the torch that ignites from everywhere, whether it is simply with a discreet smile on one's lips, everything is, of course, part of the same revelation, the same truth. And I think the head chief explained it to me shortly after, at the last meeting, when he spoke of this term that I did not know, resilience. When everything goes wrong, it can only be right afterwards. In the worst case you will die, and there are no more problems. You'll see. Accept the unknown, accept the zero time, without question, and the process will happen automatically, not necessarily in the moment, because if it doesn't happen in the moment, it means what? That you were too much on hold, and what awaits is the character. It will simply prove to you that the point of view, the perspective of consciousness, has not changed in the end, but by repeating it, but into the days that will pass, even in your simplest life, whatever your activities, everything will bring you back to that humility, to that beauty, to that evidence that you have nothing to do with a dream. Everything has always been perfect. Of course, I could not give you that speech a few years ago, first because I didn't know it, and even less so when I was incarnate. That's the revelation. And Bida told you, he is the only one when he left definitively in Metta Samadhi, and left this body, that no structure could stop him, and he took possession, if I can say, of who he was, the whole space, the whole dream, and that he was much earlier than all that. Simply, the circumstances at that time were not there to live the truth collectively, let alone at the level of several individuals. Today, yes. So I'll let you continue. Another question in the room. Voice. Yes, there is someone. Brother, why is there not only the Absolute, the Eternal I, the Truth? It resonates in the speech and in the, I don't know what, and move a little bit, that's it. I'm not sure understand. Why what for? Voice. Why is there not only the Absolute, the Truth, why are we living this dream? Because the dream is a dream, it only passes through. Why does it exist? Wait, if everyone talks at the same time, it's not going to work. So, whoever is my intermediary on the right, I'm listening to you. Voice. Why is there not only the truth? I didn't understand what he meant by that. Brother. Why is there no such thing as truth? But it does exist. To exist is to stand outside the truth, outside the being. Existence means to stand outside the truth. To be, in the sense of a person, in the very sense of the self, does not allow you to understand that you are the non-being. Then why did you do it? But because at some point, which is out of all time, like out of all space, there was a need to manifest this dream of creation, and when you turn off the current of this video game as my channel says, well, there will be no more video game, and you will realize that all this, in the end, has only happened, really and concretely, and that absolutely all creation has been deployed at 0 point, not elsewhere, since there is no time or space. You escape time by living space, and when you live space, you return to the heart of the heart, and you are free, totally, you're in joy, you have found yourself, you have recognized yourself. Now if you want to ask me what it was for, well, I can only answer you, nothing at all. Laughs. Has absolutely nothing, except to find yourself, and it's the same as when you sleep. At night, you have dreams, nightmares, or you have no dreams, no nightmares. So sometimes you have dreams that can be explained, that give you meaning, but it always concerns the person. No dream can make you live the truth. I'm talking about good nights here. But no life, inscribed in any form, can allow you to live the truth. So, indeed, all this has been useless, all this is useless, all this is useless, all this will be useless, and it is perfectly appropriate, because there is nothing. Laughs. There is no more absolute perfection, is it not? It is only the ego and the self that believe that we will have to progress, that we will have to admire creation, that does not prevent you from admiring the flowers, the fish, this world, but at that moment it is a contemplation, that you absorb the world within you. You realize that you are the world, here on this earth. It is not a view of the mind, it is not a view of consciousness, it is not an experience, it is the only truth. The dream of creation has been useless, and when you leave time and space, you will realize that the universes have only passed away, and that you do not need universes, that you do not need dimensions, and that you are in what can be called the perfect state. But perfection is not of this world. As we all know, we have all had difficulties in our lives, of different kinds, whether we are a simple worker who is not interested in anything, or who has proclaimed himself master of anything. Who can say, whatever his life, even the happiest one, that it has been a succession of happy moments, a succession of happiness? No, happiness is beatitude, it is the finalization of the resurrection. That happiness, that joy, cannot be compared to anything, and it puts an end, in a definitive way, to what has only happened. It was all just a bad dream, or a beautiful dream, but it's not the truth. The only truth is called love, and this love does not need form and does not need a world, and you are really, we are, one, we're love, but there is no one. It allowed us to experience ourselves somewhere, but the dream had to be written before could be lived. It had to be deployed at zero time, to make sure it ends, since it's something that can only end. Creation is not infinite, as you know, on time scales that astrophysicists consider very, very long, to be, for example, over billions of years. A sun will go out, there are black holes that absorb everything. And as if by chance, scientists today, the black hole is also the heart of the heart, the zero time, realize that the information of life is the black hole. We observed the edge of the black holes, and every living cell here on this carbonaceous body, whether it be a plant, an animal, a human, carries this zero time. It could not have been otherwise. It's all in everything, and there's nothing more. There is nothing contradictory, except for the ego, except for the self. But for the one who lives the truth, it is obvious, it can't be any other way. Only the dreamer does not know that he is dreaming, and as the head chief said, let the dreamers dream. They are contaminated, even if they oppose the truth. The strong opposition they will put will consume them in the same way as the one who said his name and first name, lying down at night, aloud. It is the same thing. You cannot escape from who you are, and, in addition, at the collective level of the earth and creation, and all dimensions, it is synchronous, that is to say that it happens in the illusion of time and space, in the same individual and collective place, the heart of the heart, the planet Earth, gay race, but also in every consciousness. So, yes, it was absolutely useless. The dream only made it possible to finally understand that we were dreaming, that's all. Why do you want to find a use for love? Why would you want to find a function with naked joy? If you live it, there are no more questions, it's not possible. You can question yourself about anything you want, but you are no longer fooled by any world, you are no longer fooled by any evolution whatsoever. This is the only freedom that is granted to you in abundance, here on this earth, as in the whole of creation, and it takes place in the heart of the heart, in zero time, in the black hole of your chest, as in the black hole of each cell. We can continue. Voice. There is someone approaching. Sister. Hello OMA. I have a little curiosity. Why do you call Jean-Luc head chief? Laughs. I think the head chief had several nicknames, and the head chief, because he has a stubborn head, he will still treat me afterwards an old crouton rancid, no matter. Laughs. Head chief, you had to have a stubborn head to deal with everything that happened, then I named him Unbreakable, it was the truth, and now he named himself, it's Egber. But, as he said, do not see here someone superior or who has a particular function, role or thing. He is the truth, just as each of you is. Each of you, he told you, is Egber. But head chief, because it's like all rams, they have a stubborn head, they're stubborn, and when they have an idea in mind, they don't let go. And what he had in mind, head chief, was the truth, only the truth. Where is the truth? The whole dynamic was born from there. So of course, I don't know if head chief did it or not, and it doesn't matter, he obviously has within history, as everyone else does, but in individual history, before he realized that he was the whole, a journey within the particular illusion until he realized that all parts are the same, and that there is no difference between Elohim who came to bring a particular crystal to Yerushalayim and the child who dies of hunger. This is all just a dream. But there was no way to solve it, if I can say so, that is, to wake up at that time. So head chief, yes, because the stubborn head was one of its characteristics. Can I digress for a moment? What? Repeating. Come and repeat next to me, because I can't hear the outside voices, even from the microphone. Voice. She asks if she can digress. We'll do all the parentheses you want. Okay. In this search for unity, it is to say that there are many of us who are head chief. Voice. I have to repeat it to him. Thank you for repeating. I really hear the person on my right distinctly, for vibratory reasons. There is a particular energy field that is deployed between me and my two acolytes, which means that, for some people, even the voice very far away, it passes, and for others, it means nothing. It's not a problem of understanding or ease, it has nothing to do with it, but please repeat it. Voice. It is that in this search for truth, we are many to have the head chief. Yes, I see, you're all a certain age here, and there are some I recognize here, who met me in my lifetime, so we're not going to play reunion, because this is all history. Laughs. So, what do you mean by that? The head chief, what's wrong with it? Voice. It's us too. Sister. No. Given that you have named Jean-Luc head chief, in his search for the truth, it is that we are many in this search for the truth, and we are also head chiefs. But I'm going to go further, even the genetic mothers were quite the head chiefs. Laughs. And especially them, the creative aspect of the sacred feminine. Who created the dream? The first emanation, the source, Metatron, the Hate HaKadosh, and just after that, the genetic mothers. When I say just after that, it's not linear, nor spatial, it's in the same lot if I can say. Of course, and I said it, there are many of you to be a certain age, and many of you to have taken the only possible paths a few years ago, that is, spirituality, knowledge, the search for love and truth, but which could never, ever succeed, even if your life was perfect, you came back tirelessly in the dream. Already for many years, from the year 2011, we had told you and affirmed, except those who wanted to reincarnate, that most of the sisters and brothers of the earth were before meeting the Ekans, in order to be placed in stasis, until the moment of the collective awakening of the dream. Yes, of course, and we are not going to make statistics, but wherever I express myself, the vast majority of you are obviously to have experienced this search, to have experienced this spiritual search from everywhere. Because you are indeed all head chiefs. Laughs. Without exception. Today, the one who has the innocence of the child opens much more easily than all those who have walked the paths of spirituality, energy, perception, vibration, but nevertheless, it was you who was the first and who had to follow the activation of the formation of zero time through the body of eternity, gates, stars, vibrational circuits, the wave of life, the Marian channel, the channel of the ether, the ascensional crowns, the elementary triangles of the head, in order to sit, to root, if one can say so, the return of truth, and to prepare the end of the dream of creation. But it was all written down. You had the impression that you had made an effort, you had the impression that you had walked, everything was only done to bring you as close as possible to zero time, to the black hole, or to the double terrace, or to the heart of the heart, or to Shantinalaya, you call it what you want. The only proof that it has been repeated over the past year without stopping, the only proof of the truth is the experience. When you experience the smile, the joy and the blaze, everything is swept away, but if there are still things to solve, every day, for everyone. You see. But it's over. When I say it's over, it means you're carrying zero time information. It is activated in you. You're the key, you're the lock, you're the door, until the moment you realize that there has never been a key, there has never been a lock, there has never been a door, there has never been a form, there has never been a world, that you are this love devoid of all attributes, functions, forms, and that you are both everywhere and at the same time nowhere. No matter how I try to explain it, no matter how you testify to it, it is always the same thing, it has only one purpose and the result is always the same. And then, what happens? Ebba told you, Bida told you, you go back to your simplest humanity, but, within this simplest humanity, everything is transmuted, everything is transfigured, and you have washed your robes in the blood of the Lamb, as was written by St. John. The Last Judgment is only your installation on the throne, surrounded by 1,000 gods, surrounded by the 4 angels of the elements, surrounded by thousands of archangels, surrounded by thousands of worlds. It is only you, and nothing is distant, and nothing is separated in truth, despite all the appearances of forms, thoughts, concepts or worlds. The only truth is there, it is there, everything else, and I believe that Enel had explained at length. I already said it last time, and in 2009, at the very beginning of the heavenly wedding, it is the great difference between what are called relative truths and absolute truth. The absolute truth is agape, it is the fire of the heart, and there is no more heart, since you are ablaze, a torch, you are love naked, everything else was only part of the dream, everything else had been written to allow you to live both the Alpha and the Omega, but also to live at the end that there was no more Alpha than Omega. Of course, conscience can never accept these words, but what you are, yes. One more question. Voice, yes. So, brother, I want to know, do you have any concrete sentences that can be practiced to integrate light, positive, concrete thought sentences? Brother Voice, do you have any sentences that can be said? Sentences that we can say why? Brother Voice, positive thoughts. What are positive sentences? But thought belongs to thought. Thinking will never get you out of the dream, no matter what your positive or negative thoughts are, it is still an improvement of the person, but it is not the truth. Of course, it is much easier to be positive than to be negative in thoughts, but it will never get you out of the person. What is your goal related to positive thinking? Happiness. But happiness is ephemeral. Joy has nothing to do with happiness. Happiness does indeed depend on your thoughts, your affects, the way you live, but is that all you are here for? What are you looking for? Happiness? Then you are not ready for the truth yet. Truth ends the world, ends spirituality, ends the character, ends creation. Well, I'm mixed up. Laughs. What's he saying? Voice. He says he's all mixed up. That's why I'm here. Laughs. Think carefully. I'm not criticizing the questions, not at all, but think carefully. There are the words you say and there's what's behind it. The search for happiness is a utopia, no matter how perfect your life may be, here on this earth. Remember that you are only passing through this earth, and you are therefore subject to time. When you think positive thoughts and seek happiness, you are not available for the truth. Truth does not care about happiness, truth does not care about your life as a person, truth does not care about what you think, and yet you are the truth, because somewhere inside you, there remains a form of identification with this body, this world, this life. But none of this is true, it's a lie, and you can't be available for the truth, and be available for happiness or positive thoughts. It is also, when you say positive thoughts, it obviously implies, as I said, that there are so-called negative thoughts. But you're not any of your thoughts. There is no space for solution in thought, thought does not belong to you. Even what you think doesn't come from you, it's only an assembly of waves, of vibrations, that creates thought. What you think is not coming from you. It is an illusion, and I think that the head chief would tell you all this is perfectly demonstrable and demonstrated. Scientists today on this earth are much more advanced than those who are still in positive thoughts, in energy, in vibrations. They know the truth, even if they are not yet living it. Time does not exist. There is no such thing as space. This world is a binary computer simulation. As I was saying with the example of prison, just because you understand the bars of the prison and spend your time finding happiness in your prison, does not mean you will be free from prison. You're only improving, I would say, your conditions of detention and deprivation of truth. The truth doesn't care about this world as much as anyone else. The truth doesn't care about your character, doesn't care about your thoughts. You won't get to anything about the truth like that, but don't worry, you came, you talked, it's too late, you're contaminated, even if you're confused. Laughs. And precisely, when you are all confused, you say, well, the mind can no longer function, it is flabbergasted, it is collapsed. That's what it takes. At the time of the event, you will all be amazed, awake or not. You will all be unable to control anything in your body, your life or this world. It was called stasis. There have been many of you since last year, since the very beginning of 2018, since the Metatron Archangel freed the last keys on December 14, 2017, he has allowed all of you, after our silence as elders, stars and archangels, to discover autonomy and freedom. But autonomy and freedom have nothing to do with happiness. The search for happiness is a form of greed, a form of appropriation. How do you want to live that the other is you if you talk about your happiness? It is not a question of happiness, it is a question of love. What did you love in your life? How did you like it? Everything else is just wind. It is not a judgment, it is yourself confronted with yourself at the moment of stasis, or the event, or your death. Ask the brothers and sisters who have passed this stage to be all mixed up and who live with a smile or who live the truth, this naked joy, this agape, this fire of the sacred heart, ask them what they are living. Do they seek happiness? Do they practice positive thinking, meditation or even today alignments? No. Freedom is even in relation to that, because it is the character, even if it has been essential for more than 30 years to raise the level of consciousness. Today, it's no use anymore, really, but I can't prove it to you. The best demonstration is yourself when you see it. Everything else is just cinema in the sense of comedy, it's wind. Believing that you are going to live happiness and love, by practicing anything, takes you away from the truth today, and you will only be able to see it, and you will only be able to live it, whatever you still think of it today. You can't escape from freedom. If you want, it's as if there were a character who imprisons you, who only knows prison, he was born in prison, he doesn't even imagine that there's a world out there, and that there's something else, if not what his window gives him to see, if not maybe the food we bring him, but there's no joy in it, and especially no truth. The truth, when it is lived, even for a moment, well, it will give you this inner joy, and you recognize yourself. There is no technique, even though I know that head chief has developed something that frees the head from itself, but it is really the stopping of the motor of suffering, that is, the stopping of the search today more than ever that makes you live the truth. Because from now on, I'm not going to go back over all of Biden's statements, but from the moment that if today you are still looking for something about happiness, about truth, you can't look for who you are, you can only find yourself. Be logical. There is nothing more logical, and the one who lives it, and the one who lived it, can no longer be fooled by his own character, can no longer be fooled by this world as by any other world. He is present to himself, present to the truth, he is love, but without definition, without particularism, without needing to justify anything, or to demonstrate anything. There is in the natural state, and in the natural state no research that can hold, no positive or negative thoughts that can hold, no vibrations even if they're rare that can hold. You go through all this. You're just behind or in front, and all this is getting closer and closer. I think the head chief had called it the fusion of the simulacrum and the sacred. Even the video game that is played where the bad boys, as I called them, feel like they are doing everything they can to avoid the truth from emerging, is only serving the truth. They don't just know it. Not yet. And the one who locked you up, the bad boys, the puppets as I called them a few years ago, is nothing more than yourself, nothing more than each of us. You have no way of representing it yourself, you have no way other than to live it, but as long as you seek to understand, grasp or explain it, you move away from the experience. It is a certainty for everyone. That is the only truth. So at that point, you're going to say, but how to do it? Well, be like Teresa, the way of childhood, the way of innocence, be fully present to yourself, be fully present to everyone else, be fully present to anyone you look at, be it an insect, be it a tree, be it a brother or a sister, or anything, a star. There is the same constancy for those who live it. They do not cheat, they cannot cheat, unlike those who feed on vision, scenario, vibration, energy or evolution. It is also very, very important, on another aspect of this, it is important that I reveal to you today, it is important that all the brothers and sisters who participated at one time all the time in AYOUN dimensions, by the vibratory processes, by everything you received, it was imperative that it was you who were the first to live it, because you were the most dangerous, living supraconsciousness, who would risk opposing you to the truth. And indeed, the first will be the last will be the first, even if you know that there was never any first or last since there is no one, but in the history of the dream, this is obvious. It was necessary that all those who would prior in advance, by their spiritual culture, by their research, by their openness to energetic and vibratory perception, be in some way channeled, directed, surrounded, to allow the installation of zero time, not for them, but for the whole creation. But these brothers and sisters had to live it first, because they are the most dangerous in relation to the truth. Conscience will never accept the truth. Conscience is a disease. So you have a good idea that when I say that to a person, as you say in your expression, corpse, you're all confused in this. Laughs. I really like that expression. Laughs. But, when everything is confused, you can no longer distinguish anything, so everything is one, past the first moment of confusion or being confused. Being confused is not going to get you tangled up, but it is going to get you tangled up. Laughs. One more question. Voice. We're at the point where we would like a short break. So, but we're going to take this short break. I'm not saying goodbye, but I'll see you in a few minutes, and thank you for your presence and your delicate questions that allow me to get back into the bath of this wonderful language that we also call French, but which is a little special here. Laughs. I'll see you in a moment. Thank you. Applause. Through Jean-Luc Young. The Transformations. English translation, LMF.